Read it out loud, Caleb. If you're innocent, prove it to everyone." Principal Warren Cole held the thin blue notebook above his head like it was a stolen weapon. 200 people sat frozen in the auditorium of Lincoln Ridge High School in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Parents, teachers, honor students, even the local news camera that had come for scholarship night. On the stage, 16-year-old Caleb Morrow stood beside the podium with one hand on his white cane and the other searching the empty air where his notebook had been. He was blind, and the principal had just ordered him to read print he could not see. A few students laughed, then stopped when Caleb's mouth tightened. His cheeks burned, but he did not cry. He only said, quietly, "That's my math notebook, sir." "No," Principal Cole said, smiling for the room. "This is what students use when they think pity is a shield." He flipped the notebook open. Rows of raised dots filled the pages. To most people in that auditorium, they looked like nothing. Just bumps, just texture, just a private language no one had bothered to learn. Cole held it toward the first row. "Braille," he said, as if the word itself proved the crime. Perfect little dots, perfect little secrets. Caleb's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Ellis, rose halfway from her chair. "Principal Cole, that's not appropriate. Sit down, Mrs. Ellis." The sharpness in his voice cut through the auditorium. Mrs. Ellis sat, but her hands stayed clenched around the program in her lap. Behind Caleb, the scholarship banner hung crooked over the stage. A gold seal, a school motto. Integrity above all. Caleb knew where every microphone stand was. He knew the distance from the podium to the stairs. He knew the tiny hum of the projector, the cough of the janitor near the side door, the nervous tapping of someone's shoe in the second row. But he could not see the way people were watching him. He could only hear it, the soft rustle of judgment, the phones being lifted, the small, satisfied breath of the principal who had built his career on being the man who cleaned up troubled schools. Cole placed the notebook on the podium and pressed one finger down on a page. This student scored a 98 on the district algebra exam after failing 2 practice tests. Then we found this hidden in his bag. I will not allow cheating to be dressed up as courage. Caleb's cane tapped once against the stage floor. I didn't cheat. Cole leaned close enough that only the front rows could hear the cruelty soften into something worse. Then you should have stayed in your lane. A mother in the crowd gasped. Caleb's jaw shifted. His fingers curled inward, not into fists, but into the shape they made when he read. Thumb steady, index finger ready, like part of him still believed the truth could be touched if someone would just give it back. Then, Cole did the thing no one expected. He tore out a page. The sound was small, almost paper-thin. But in that room, it landed like a slap. Caleb flinched, not from fear, from recognition, because the page Cole had ripped was not an answer sheet. It was not a formula list. It was not cheating. It was the page Caleb had promised never to lose. Mrs. Ellis stood fully this time. Stop. But Cole had already raised the torn Braille page beside the microphone. This is what deception looks like now. Not scribbled in a sleeve, not written on a wrist, hidden behind disability, hidden behind sympathy. The auditorium shifted. Some faces hardened, others dropped. Near the back wall, Denise Harper from the school district folded her program and stopped writing notes. She had come to observe the scholarship night, not a public punishment. Now her eyes narrowed at the page in Cole's hand. Caleb reached forward. "Please give that back." The room heard the word please. Cole heard weakness. He lowered the page just enough for Caleb to miss it. "You want this back? Admit what you did. Admit you used those notes during the exam, and maybe I'll recommend mercy instead of expulsion." Expulsion. The word emptied the air around Caleb. No scholarship, no state math program, no record worth carrying into senior year. One accusation could follow him through every application, every interview, every future room where he would already have to prove he belonged. Caleb swallowed. His voice came out thin, but steady. I can't admit to something I didn't do. Cole's smile vanished. Then he made his final mistake. He slid the torn page into his suit pocket. Then, this goes into evidence, he said, and your future goes with it. A camera light blinked red near the aisle. Mrs. Ellis whispered Caleb's name, but he did not answer. His head angled slightly toward the principal's pocket, toward the stolen page, toward the raised dots no one in that auditorium had understood. No one except Caleb, and one other person, a pattern that matched something buried inside the district exam scandal no one had been able to prove. And before that night ended, the same principal who had called a blind boy a cheat in front of the whole town would be the one begging people to stop recording. But to understand why Caleb had that notebook, why Cole was so desperate to take it, and why one torn Braille page could bring down the most protected man at Lincoln Ridge, we have to go back 6 days. Back to a quiet kitchen before sunrise. Back to a boy counting raised dots with tired fingers. Back to the morning Caleb first realized the test was never the real trap. 6 days earlier, Caleb Morrow woke before the alarm because the radiator in the kitchen had started knocking. He lived with his grandmother in a narrow duplex on the east side of Cedar Rapids, where the train horns carried through the walls and every bill arrived before the money did. Their kitchen table had one short leg, so Caleb had folded an old cereal box under it until it stopped rocking. His grandmother, Ruth, called it his engineering degree. Caleb called it Tuesday. He moved through the apartment by memory. 7 steps from his bed to the door. 14 down the hall. Right hand on the cracked paint by the kitchen frame. His cane waited in the corner, but inside the duplex he rarely needed it. The rooms had become a map under his feet. On the table sat a slate, a stylus, and the thin blue notebook Ruth had bought him at the discount office store after arguing with the cashier that college rule did not matter when the reader was using his fingertips. The notebook was cheap. The cover bent too easily. The spiral snagged on everything. But Caleb carried it like some kids carried a phone. Inside were algebra drills, classroom reminders, bus schedules, and pages Ruth could not read but treated with care anyway. She never placed a coffee mug on it, never moved it without telling him, never called it strange. To Ruth, those raised dots were Caleb's handwriting. That morning, Caleb sat at the table while the first gray light pressed against the blinds. His fingers traveled across a page, left to right, soft and precise. Ruth shuffled in wearing slippers and her pharmacy sweater. She was 68, though pain had added years to her voice. "You sleep at all?" she asked. "Enough. That means no." Caleb smiled faintly. "It means enough." She poured coffee for herself and warmed oatmeal for him, Tim. They had learned to talk around worry, because saying it plainly made it heavier. The state math program application was due in 9 days. The scholarship night at Lincoln Ridge was in 6. If Caleb scored high enough on the district algebra exam and kept his record clean, he could qualify for a summer program at the University of Iowa that Ruth could never pay for. If he did not, senior year would become smaller. Fewer options, more forms. More people saying maybe next time. Caleb did not say any of that. Ruth already knew. He tapped the page with his index finger. "Can you quiz me on systems after work? If my knees still remember how to stand, I'll make dinner. You make sandwiches. They count. They count as evidence that you need me alive." He laughed, and for a few seconds the kitchen felt normal. Then Ruth's phone buzzed on the counter. Caleb heard the cheap plastic vibrate against the mail stack. Ruth picked it up, and the tiny pause before she spoke told him more than the words. "School?" he asked. "Automated reminder," she said. "Exam today. It's just algebra. Nothing is just algebra when people are watching you take it." Caleb's fingers stopped. At Lincoln Ridge, every test with district weight came with a special routine for him. Separate room. Screen reader. Braille copy when available. A proctor, who sometimes whispered like blindness, was contagious. Caleb hated the room most of all, because it made his honesty feel like a condition needing supervision. But he had worked for this exam. not because he loved math the way teachers claimed gifted students should. Caleb loved math because numbers stayed where you put them. They did not pity you. They did not raise their voices to help. They did not assume silence meant confusion. He packed the blue notebook into his bag, sliding it behind his Braille calculator and a folder with the application forms. Ruth placed a small cloth pouch beside his hand. "Your mother's stylus," she said. Caleb's thumb found the worn metal shape through the fabric. He went still. His mother, Lila, had used that stylus when she taught him Braille after the illness took the last of his sight at 8. She had been a library aide with patient hands and a laugh that always arrived before the joke was finished. After she died, Ruth kept the stylus in a drawer with old photographs and insurance letters. Caleb rarely carried it. "I don't want to lose it," he said. "Then don't. That's your advice?" "That is all advice, boiled down." He slipped the pouch into the front pocket of his backpack. On the bus, Caleb sat near the middle, one earbud out so he could hear the stops. He reviewed equations by touch while the city woke around him. Diesel brakes, a stroller wheel squeaking, a man coughing into his sleeve. At the third stop, 2 Lincoln Ridge students got on talking too loudly. "I heard Cole's making examples this year," one said. "He already caught 3 people with answer photos." "Good. Maybe the scholarship kids won't all be fake." Caleb kept reading. Principal Warren Cole had arrived at Lincoln Ridge the previous fall with polished shoes, a district award, and a reputation for turning bad numbers into good headlines. Attendance up, suspensions down, test scores climbing. He gave interviews in front of trophy cases and used words like accountability until adults nodded. Students had another word for him. Careful. You were careful around Principal Cole. Careful how you answered. Careful what you posted. Careful what you forgot in your locker. He knew how to make a warning sound like a favor. By first period, the school smelled of floor wax and wet coats. Caleb moved through the hallway by sound and rhythm, cane tip finding the seam between tiles. Most students slid around him without speaking. A few said his name. One boy muttered, "Watch the VIP lane," and his friends snickered. Caleb did not slow down. Mrs. Ellis met him near room 112. She taught English, not math, but she had become the adult who noticed when Caleb was too quiet. "You ready?" she asked. "As I'll get. You know the material. I know it when nobody's breathing over my shoulder." Her voice softened. "I'll be in the building if anything gets weird." Caleb adjusted the strap on his backpack. It always gets a little weird. The exam room was the small conference space beside the guidance office. A computer waited with headphones. A sealed test packet sat on the table. The proctor, Mr. Voss, cleared his throat 3 times before reading the rules. No phones, no outside notes, no communication, all personal materials away from the testing surface. Caleb placed his bag against the wall. As he did, his fingers brushed something under the chair. A small rectangle of paper. He picked it up without thinking. It was smooth, not Braille. Someone had folded it twice. Caleb could feel an edge damp with fresh ink or sweat. "What is that?" Mr. Voss asked. "I don't know. It was on the floor." "Give it here." Caleb held it out. Mr. Voss unfolded it. The room changed around him. Not loudly. Just enough. A breath caught. A shoe shifted. "What does it say?" Caleb asked. "Nothing you need to worry about." But Mr. Voss's voice had tightened. The exam began 3 minutes late. Caleb tried to focus. The screen reader spoke too fast, then too slow. He adjusted it, solved, checked, moved on. Halfway through, a door opened in the hall, and Principal Cole's voice passed by, smooth and low. "Make sure every accommodation is documented. We cannot afford another irregularity." Another. Caleb's fingers hovered above the keyboard. By the time the exam ended, Mr. Voss was gone, and the folded paper was gone with him. Caleb packed his bag slowly, counting each item by touch. Calculator. Folder. Notebook. Stylus pouch. Everything was there. At lunch, whispers moved faster than trays. Someone had been caught with answers. Someone had leaked the district test. Someone in accommodations was involved. No one knew anything, which did not stop anyone from sounding certain. Then, just before final bell, Caleb was called to the principal's office. The secretary would not tell him why. And when Caleb reached the closed door, he heard Principal Cole inside, speaking to someone on the phone. "Yes," Cole said, "if this connects to the scholarship list, I'll handle it before the event." Caleb's hand tightened around the strap of his backpack. 6 days until scholarship night, 9 days until the application deadline. And somewhere inside Lincoln Ridge, someone had decided the easiest person to blame was the one who could not read the paper they were hiding. Principal Warren Cole's office did not feel like it belonged in a school. No student art, no crooked team photos, no thank you cards taped to a filing cabinet. Just framed awards, a spotless desk, and a wall monitor cycling through attendance charts, test growth, and news clips of Cole shaking hands with district officials. In every picture, he wore the same measured smile, the kind that made adults feel a problem had already been solved. Caleb stood 3 feet inside the door, cane resting against his leg. Mr. Voss sat near the window, twisting his wedding ring. Beside Cole's desk was Taryn Blake, the assistant principal, holding a folder against her chest like it might protect her. Taryn was young enough to still say students' names softly, but she had learned to survive under Cole by agreeing before he finished a sentence. "Caleb," Cole said, "sit." Caleb stayed standing. "Am I in trouble?" "That depends on whether you decide to be honest." The office door clicked shut behind him. Cole let the silence stretch. He was good at that. Students filled silence with fear. Teachers filled it with apology. Parents filled it with explanations he could later use against them. Caleb did none of those. Cole opened the folder. "This morning, a folded answer key was found in your testing room. I found paper on the floor and gave it to Mr. Voss. And you expect us to believe you had no idea what was on it. I couldn't read it." Taryn's eyes flicked toward Cole, then away. Mr. Voss cleared his throat. He did hand it over right away. Cole's smile thinned. After touching it, Caleb felt heat rise at the back of his neck. Touching paper doesn't mean I used it. It means contamination. It means irregularity. It means I have to report this. The words sounded official, but Caleb heard the trap inside them. Cole was not asking what happened. He was building a sentence with Caleb already at the end of it. "I finished the exam without that paper," Caleb said. Cole tapped the folder, and scored unusually high. The test was algebra, after failing 2 practice tests. I was sick during one. The other had a graph section my file said should have been converted. Taryn shifted. She knew that was true. Caleb had heard Mrs. Ellis argue about it in the main office 2 weeks earlier. Cole closed the folder. Accommodations do not explain miracles. It wasn't a miracle. No. That's what concerns me. The rule he weaponized was simple. Any testing irregularity could trigger suspension from awards, programs, and scholarship recognition until an investigation was complete. It sounded fair on paper. In practice, it meant accusation alone could erase a student before anyone had to prove anything. And scholarship night was close enough that even a temporary hold would do permanent damage. Caleb heard the leather chair creak as Cole leaned back. "You have a chance to protect yourself," Cole said. "Give me your notes from the last month. All of them, Braille, audio files, whatever you use. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. My personal notes, your academic materials. My notebook has other things in it. Then you should have kept better boundaries." Caleb's hand moved to the strap of his backpack. "I want Mrs. Ellis here." Cole paused. There it was, a small refusal. Not loud, not dramatic, but enough to irritate a man who liked frightened children better than careful ones. "This is an administrative meeting," Cole said. "I still want her here." Taryn finally spoke. "Warren, we can wait 10 minutes." Cole's head angled toward her. One word from him was enough. "Taryn." She stopped. A minute later, Mrs. Ellis arrived anyway. She entered without knocking hard, but with enough force to make the door complain. Her gray hair had come loose from its clip, and she carried a stack of essays under one arm as if she had been pulled out of a normal day and into something uglier. "Caleb asked for me," she said. Cole folded his hands. "This is not a disciplinary hearing. Then it won't hurt to have a witness." That was how Mrs. Ellis became the first adult in the room who was not afraid of the furniture. Cole explained his version: the folded paper, the score, the notebook request, the need to preserve integrity before the event. He used integrity 4 times. Mrs. Ellis listened, then said, "If you believe there was a leak, you need a process that starts wider than the blind student who picked up trash from the floor." Mr. Voss stared at his shoes. Caleb did not smile, though he wanted to. Cole's voice lowered. "Careful, Elaine." "No," she said. "Precise." Taryn opened the folder and slid out a single printed sheet. "There is another concern." Cole's jaw tightened, but he let her continue. The answer key found on the floor had a sequence of problem numbers marked: 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. She swallowed. "Those are the same problems Caleb answered correctly that most students missed." Mrs. Ellis frowned. "How many students answered those correctly?" "I don't have that report," Taryn said. "Then you don't have a comparison." Cole reached for the sheet. "We have enough to pause recognition pending review." Caleb's fingers found the seam on his backpack strap and rubbed once across the stitching. 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. Numbers were easier to hold than panic. Something about them bothered him. Not the answers. Not the accusation, the pattern. Those problem numbers were not random, but they were not an algebra pattern either. They felt like positions, like letters, like a message someone had tried to fold into plain sight. "Can I touch the sheet?" Caleb asked. Cole gave a short laugh. "You want the answer key back? I want to know how it was marked." "You don't need that." Mrs. Ellis said, "He asked a reasonable question." Cole ignored her. "Here is what happens now. Caleb's exam will be flagged. His scholarship recognition will be held until I decide whether this becomes a formal misconduct referral. In the meantime, he will turn over all exam-related notes." Mrs. Ellis stepped nearer to Caleb. "He will not surrender personal property without a written request and Ruth Morrow present." For the first time, Mr. Voss lifted his head. There may be a way to check the room schedule. Other students used Conference B before Caleb. Cole's eyes cut to him. The room seemed to shrink. "What did you say?" Cole asked. Mr. Voss's voice faded. "Only that the paper could have been there before. That room was secured." Was it? The question barely had sound, but it landed. Taryn stared at the folder. Mrs. Ellis stopped breathing for a beat. Caleb heard Cole stand. "Mr. Voss," Cole said, calm as ice, "you should return to your classroom." Mr. Voss did, and with him went the only adult who had seen Caleb hand over the paper before the exam began. After the door shut, Cole's tone changed. "Caleb, understand something. I have protected this school from students who thought rules were optional. I will not let one sympathetic story compromise the event." "I'm not a story," Caleb said. "No. Right now you're a liability." Mrs. Ellis snapped, "Enough." But Caleb had heard the truth inside the insult. This was not just about a test. It was about an image Cole needed clean before district officials, donors, and cameras filled the auditorium. A blind student accused of cheating was useful if he confessed quietly. Dangerous if he made people ask what else had gone wrong. Cole printed the written request while they waited. It demanded Caleb produce all notes, study guides, devices, recordings, and tactile materials related to the district algebra exam by Friday afternoon, one day before scholarship night. Caleb folded the paper into his backpack. As his fingers brushed the blue notebook, he remembered the numbered sequence: 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. He could not see the answer key. He could not prove the marks. He could not stop Cole from flagging the exam. But he could do one thing most people in that building forgot. He could remember by touch. And when Mrs. Ellis walked him back to class. Caleb asked her a question so quiet she almost missed it. "Mrs. Ellis, if numbers are turned into letters, what's 6, 11, 13, 18, 22? She stopped near the lockers. "F, K-NEM-R-V, she said. "Why?" Caleb's fingers tightened around his cane. "F-K-M-R-V. Not a word. Maybe not meant for him at all. At the far end of the hallway, Principal Cole's office door opened again. Taryn Blake came out holding the folder, her face drained of color. A small corner of paper slipped from it and floated to the floor. She snatched it up fast, but not fast enough. Caleb heard the faint raised scrape of pencil against paper as it bent in her hand. A grid. Someone had been marking more than answers. And for the first time, Caleb understood that the evidence against him might be the edge of something larger, something Cole did not want anyone touching. By Thursday morning, Caleb's name had become a hallway sound, not spoken to him, around him. It followed the tap of his cane from lockers to classrooms, broken into half-sentences and fake whispers. He had the answers. No, it was Braille codes. My mom says accommodations are basically private testing. Caleb kept his pace even. If he slowed down, they would hear it. If he answered, they would enjoy it. So he walked the way Ruth had taught him after his mother died. Count the steps, name the doorways, never give strangers your whole face. At his locker, someone had taped a printed sheet across the handle. Caleb found the edge with his fingers. Paper. Smooth. Tape at all 4 corners. "What is it?" he asked. No one answered. A girl nearby muttered, "Don't." Mrs. Ellis arrived before the laughter did. She pulled the sheet down so fast the tape snapped. "It was nothing," she said. Caleb held out his hand. "Please." She hesitated, then placed the paper in his palm. It had no braille. He could only feel the torn corners where she had ripped it free. "Read it," he said. Her voice changed. Shortcut scholar. The hallway did not go quiet. That would have been kinder. Instead, it kept moving around him, everyone pretending not to witness what they had already accepted. Caleb folded the paper once and slid it into his backpack. Mrs. Ellis said, "I'll report it." To who? She had no answer. The first dismissal came that afternoon. Denise Harper, the district board representative, was scheduled to visit Lincoln Ridge before the event. Mrs. Ellis caught her outside the media center and asked for 5 minutes. Caleb stood beside her while lockers slammed and the final bell crowd thinned. Harper was in her 50s with a direct voice and the tired patience of someone who had sat through too many polished presentations. "I understand there's concern," Harper said. "There's more than concern," Mrs. Ellis replied. "A student is being framed by a process that hasn't even started properly." Harper paused. Framed is a strong word. So is cheating. Caleb held the written request in both hands. "They want all my notes by tomorrow." Harper read it. "This is broad," she said. "It includes personal materials," Mrs. Ellis added. Harper's thumb tapped the page. "I can ask whether the district's testing office has opened a formal review, but until there's evidence of misconduct by staff, Principal Cole controls the building response." "Then, what counts as evidence?" Caleb asked. The question hung there. Harper did not soften it with false comfort. "Something that proves the answer key was mishandled before you entered that room, or something showing the accusation is part of a larger irregularity." Caleb thought of the sequence: 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. The scrape of a grid corner in Taryn Blake's hand. "What if the evidence isn't print?" he asked. Harper's tone sharpened slightly. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, Principal Cole appeared at the end of the hall with Taryn behind him. "Denise," Cole called, pleasant and loud. "There you are. The auditorium setup is ready when you are." Harper folded the request and handed it back to Caleb. "I'll be at scholarship night." It was not enough, but it was not nothing. The next morning, Caleb was pulled from second period. This time, Ruth was in Cole's office when he arrived. She wore her pharmacy sweater, her hair pinned unevenly, and the expression she used when a cashier overcharged her by 6 cents. Cole had chosen the conference table instead of his desk, a small performance of fairness. Taryn sat to his right, pen ready. Mrs. Ellis sat beside Ruth. Caleb took the chair closest to the door and placed his backpack between his feet. Cole slid a form across the table. "If Caleb signs this acknowledgement, we can keep this internal," he said. "A temporary admission of unauthorized material. He forfeits scholarship recognition this cycle, completes academic honesty counseling, and avoids suspension." Ruth's hand found Caleb's wrist under the table. Caleb said, "That says I cheated. It says you accept responsibility for an irregularity." "I didn't create one." Cole's voice remained smooth. "You were found with a key. I found paper on the floor. After which you produced an exceptional score." "I studied." "Caleb." Cole leaned forward. "This is the moment where pride becomes expensive." Ruth's chair scraped. "My grandson's dignity is not a fee schedule." Taryn's pen stopped. Cole's polite mask held, but barely. "Mrs. Morrow, if this proceeds formally, a suspension is likely. That would appear on his record while applications are being reviewed. I would hate to see one stubborn decision close doors for him." There it was, the practical threat. Not a shout, not a slammed fist, just a man placing a child's future on the table and calling it concern. Caleb reached into his backpack and removed the blue notebook. Ruth's breath hitched. He placed it before him, but kept one hand on the cover. "You can review exam-related pages with Mrs. Ellis present," he said. "Not the whole notebook." Cole's mouth tightened. "You don't decide the scope. It has personal pages. Then remove them. I can't tear them out." "Why?" Caleb's fingers rested on the cover. "Because some things only stay whole if you don't let people handle them." Cole gave a small, humorless laugh. "This is exactly the evasive behavior that concerns me," Mrs. Ellis said. "Or it's a student setting a reasonable boundary." Taryn whispered, "We could inventory the pages by topic." Cole ignored her. He reached for the notebook. Caleb pulled it back. The room changed temperature. Cole said, "Are you refusing a lawful school request? I'm refusing to hand over private pages without someone independent present." "Independent?" Cole repeated. "Ms. Harper." Taryn's eyes lifted. Ruth squeezed Caleb's wrist once, not to stop him, to tell him she was there. Cole stood slowly. "Denise Harper is not your personal attorney." "No," Caleb said, but she asked what evidence would count. For half a second, the words landed in the wrong place. Cole processed them too late. Then his smile returned, thin and controlled. "So, Mrs. Ellis has been coaching you?" "No." "Then who?" Caleb opened the notebook to a blank page near the back. He took his mother's stylus from the cloth pouch. The worn metal was warm from his pocket. "I coached myself," he said. He began writing in Braille. Not notes, not homework. A memory. 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. Then beneath it, every sound from the testing room he could reconstruct. Mr. Voss's chair near the window, the door opened before the exam, the folded paper under the left front chair, Cole's voice in the hall saying another irregularity. Ruth watched his hand move. Mrs. Ellis understood before anyone else did. Caleb was saving evidence in the one form Cole could not casually read, edit, or pretend he had misunderstood. Taryn's face went pale. Cole said, "Put that away." Caleb kept writing. The stylus punched quiet dots into the thick paper. "Caleb," Cole said, sharper now. He finished the line, closed the notebook, and slid it into his backpack. "I'll bring the exam-related pages to the event," Caleb said. "You'll bring them here by 3. "No." The word was small, but it did not bend. Cole stared at him. "Then you are suspended pending investigation." Ruth rose so fast her chair struck the wall. "You can't suspend him for asking for a witness. I can suspend him for failing to comply during a misconduct inquiry." Mrs. Ellis stood too. "Warren, this is retaliation. This meeting is over." Caleb did not move right away. His fingers found the notebook through the fabric of his bag. He could feel its shape, its weight, the page he had just made. He was scared. Of course he was scared. But fear had finally become less useful than preparation. By 3 o'clock, an email went out to staff. Caleb Morrow would not participate in scholarship night due to an academic integrity review. By 4, students had screenshots. By 5, Ruth's phone had 12 missed calls and 1 voicemail from the state math program asking for clarification. By 6, Caleb sat at the kitchen table writing page after page in Braille, while Ruth cried quietly in the bathroom, where she thought he could not hear. He wrote the numbers again, then reversed them. 22, 18, 13, 11, 6. V, R, M, K, F. Still nothing. He tried positions on a grid, row and column, test version and question number. The pattern stayed stubborn. Then he remembered Taryn bending the paper. The faint scrape. A grid, not letters. Caleb opened a fresh page and mapped the numbers as room seats from the conference space. 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. All left-side chairs, all along the same camera blind spot. His breathing slowed. The folded key had not been dropped randomly, it had been placed. And if Caleb was right, the person who placed it knew exactly where the school's hallway camera stopped seeing. He pressed his mother's stylus into the page and wrote one final line for himself. Saturday night. Make them read it by touch. Saturday night, Caleb was not supposed to enter Lincoln Ridge High School. His suspension email said he was barred from campus activities until the academic integrity review concluded. Principal Cole had written it cleanly, with the kind of language that made cruelty sound like procedure. But Ruth parked 2 blocks away in front of a closed barber shop and left the engine running. "You sure?" she asked. Caleb sat with his backpack on his lap. His cane rested against his knee. In the front pocket, wrapped in cloth, was his mother's stylus. In the main compartment was the blue notebook. "No," he said, "but I'm going." Ruth did not tell him to be brave. She had never wasted words on things he was already doing. Instead, she reached over and fixed the collar of his shirt. "If they make you small," she said, "don't help them." The auditorium lobby smelled like perfume, winter coats, and sheet cake. Scholarship night always made Lincoln Ridge look better than it was. Balloons in school colors, programs printed on thick paper, student portraits on display, a table of donors smiling beside a banner that said, "Integrity above all." Caleb heard his own name before anyone said it to him. A hush moved across the lobby in pieces. Mrs. Ellis reached him near the trophy case. Her hand touched his elbow, light enough to ask permission. "You came. I said I would bring the pages." "Harper is here," she whispered. "Second row, aisle seat. Is Cole?" "Everywhere." That was true. Caleb could hear him greeting donors, laughing with parents, guiding the evening with the confidence of a man who had already written the ending. Taryn Blake stood near the stage stairs, checking names. When she saw Caleb, her breath changed. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I was invited 2 weeks ago. You're suspended. I brought the materials Principal Cole requested." Taryn's folder pressed against her blouse. Paper edges clicked under her fingers. "Caleb, please don't make this public." He knew then that she was not asking for herself. Before he could answer, Cole's voice rose behind them. Caleb Morrow. The lobby thinned around the name. Parents stopped pretending not to listen. A donor lowered his cup. 2 students pulled out phones. Cole approached in a navy suit with a gold Lincoln Ridge pin on his lapel. "This is disappointing," he said, loud enough for the people nearest the auditorium doors. "You were instructed not to attend tonight. I brought my notes. Then you should have brought them to my office yesterday. I asked for an independent witness." Cole's smile tightened. "This is a school event, not a courtroom." Mrs. Ellis said, "Warren, handle this privately." "I tried." He placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. Caleb flinched away. That small movement did more damage to Cole's image than any argument could have. Several people saw it. Harper saw it. The camera from the local news outlet, set up near the aisle for Ward footage, shifted slightly. Cole removed his hand. "Fine," he said. "If Caleb wants transparency, we can provide it." He walked into the auditorium. And Caleb followed. That was how the night bent toward the moment everyone would remember. Cole took the stage before the first award. He did not repeat every detail from the office. He did not have to. He told the audience there had been an integrity concern involving a scholarship candidate, that Lincoln Ridge held all students to one standard, and that no one was above accountability. Then he called Caleb to the podium. Not as an honoree, as an example. Caleb crossed the stage slowly, cane tapping wood, every strike amplified by the microphone. He could hear Ruth in the back row breathing through her nose the way she did when pain moved through her knees. He could hear Mrs. Ellis rising somewhere to his left. Cole held out his hand, the notebook. Caleb removed it from his backpack and kept it against his chest. "I'll read the relevant pages." A ripple went through the audience. Cole gave a small laugh. "You'll read them? In Braille? Convenient." Then he took the notebook from Caleb's hands. The stage lights buzzed overhead. Caleb's palms went cold. Cole flipped through the pages with careless fingers. For the audience, this notebook was discovered as part of our inquiry into unauthorized materials. "It wasn't discovered," Caleb said. "You requested it." Cole ignored him. He stopped on a page. The one Caleb had written Friday night. The one with seat coordinates, sounds, and the sentence he had made for himself. Cole could not read it, but he could perform. "Read it out loud, Caleb. If you're innocent, prove it to everyone." The line drew a few nervous laughs, then the cruelty of it reached the room. Mrs. Ellis rose. "Principal Cole, stop this now." "Sit down, Mrs. Ellis." He held up the page. He called the dots secrets. He called Caleb's silence evasive. He said pity could not become a shield against consequences. And then, with all those witnesses watching, he tore the page from the notebook. The sound was small. Ruth made a noise like someone had struck her. Caleb reached out, but Cole lifted the page away. The paper had torn unevenly near the spiral, leaving a rough edge Caleb could almost feel in the air. "That page is personal," Caleb said. Cole leaned toward the microphone. "Personal pages do not belong in evidence unless a student hides behind them." The humiliation deepened because now it was not only about cheating, it was about ownership. Cole had taken Caleb's words, his method of writing, his mother's old habit of recording the world by touch, and made it into a prop. He slid the torn page into his suit pocket. "Admit the irregularity," he said, "and I will recommend counseling over expulsion." Expulsion. The sacred thing was no longer the scholarship. It was the record, the chance to leave Lincoln Ridge as more than a cautionary story, the right to be believed when he entered the next room. Caleb's throat tightened. For a second, he almost said what would make it stop. Not because it was true, because Ruth was crying, because Mrs. Ellis sounded close to losing her job, because 200 people were waiting for him to either confess or entertain them with more pain. His hand went to his backpack pocket. The cloth pouch was still there. His mother's stylus pressed against his fingers. Ruth's words came back. "If they make you small, don't help them." Caleb lifted his head toward the aisle. "I'm not signing anything," he said. "And I'm not confessing." Cole's voice dropped. "Then this goes into evidence, and your future goes with it." A camera light blinked red near the aisle. That was when Denise Harper stood from the second row. Not quickly, not dramatically, but with enough authority that the air rearranged itself around her. "Principal Cole," she said, "remove that page from your pocket and place it on the podium." Cole blinked once. "Denise, this is a school matter. It became a district matter when you suspended a student, publicly identified him, and destroyed part of the material you claim is evidence." The auditorium shifted. Taryn Blake appeared at the stage stairs, one hand over her folder. Her voice was barely audible. Warren. Cole did not acknowledge her. Harper walked down the aisle. Mr. Morrow, can you read the torn page if it is returned to you? Caleb kept his voice steady. Yes. Did you prepare that page after the accusation? Yes. For what purpose? Cole snapped. He is not testifying. Harper stopped at the foot of the stage. No, she said. He is being asked to read his own writing. Taryn's folder slipped from under her arm. Papers fanned across the first step. One sheet slid farther than the rest, landing near Caleb's shoe. He heard the faint rasp as it moved across the wood. Not thick paper. And when it stopped, Taryn whispered, I'm sorry. Caleb lowered his hand and touched the edge. A printed seating chart. He could not see the ink, but his fingers found what someone had pressed into it with a pen hard enough to leave grooves. 5 circled seats, 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. The first undeniable sign of truth had arrived. Not from a hero bursting through the doors, from a guilty adult finally dropping what she had been too afraid to carry. For 2 seconds, everyone watched the paper at Caleb's feet as if it had made the decision for them. Taryn stood on the stage stairs with both hands open, her folder empty now, her face stripped of the careful obedience she had worn all year. Cole recovered first. Pick that up, he said. Taryn did not move. Taryn! Denise Harper climbed the first step and bent for the sheet herself. No one touches anything else until I see what this is. Cole laughed once, too sharply. This is absurd. A seating chart proves nothing. Caleb heard the word seating and felt the final piece settle into place. Harper held the sheet under the stage lights. Mrs. Blake, is this from conference room B? Taryn's voice shook. Yes. Why do these 5 seats have circles pressed into them? Cole cut in. Because staff use planning documents all the time. You are turning office clutter into theater. He faced the audience again, trying to pull the room back into his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. This is exactly why schools avoid litigating student discipline in public. A young man made a mistake, and now adults are encouraging him to deflect. The old rhythm returned to his voice. Smooth, official, practiced. Some parents almost followed it. Then Mr. Voss rose from the side aisle. He had been sitting near the teachers, half hidden by the sound table. His tie was crooked, and he looked like a man who had spent 3 days deciding whether his job was worth his conscience. I used that room before Caleb's exam, he said. Cole's head snapped toward him. Mr. Voss, sit down. No. Voss swallowed. I used it to proctor makeup tests first period. Those circled seats were empty after my group left. Harper kept her eyes on him. Did you see a folded answer key before Caleb entered? No. And when Caleb found the paper, he handed it to me immediately. The audience shifted again, but this time the movement had direction. Toward Cole. Cole lifted both hands. A teacher forgetting a piece of paper is hardly a conspiracy. Voss's voice steadied. I didn't forget it. I never had the answer key. Taryn made a small sound. Harper said, Mrs. Blake? Taryn's words came slowly. The circled seats marked the hallway camera blind spot. Warren asked me to print the room chart after the first leaked test packet went missing. He said he needed to know where students could have passed materials without being recorded. Cole's face hardened. Do not do this. She flinched, but kept going. I thought it was for prevention. Then Caleb was accused using a paper found in that same blind spot. Cole stepped away from the podium. She is under stress. This is an employee misunderstanding. Harper held up one hand. The chart is the supporting document. It explains where the paper was placed, but it does not explain why Caleb's notes matter. Caleb raised his hand slightly. They matter because I wrote what happened before anyone told me about the chart. No one spoke. Harper turned toward him. Mr. Morrow, do you want the torn page returned? Yes. Cole's hand went to his pocket. For the first time that night, he looked unsure of what his own body might reveal. The page was still there. Everyone had watched him take it. Everyone had watched him call it evidence. Slowly, he removed it. The torn Braille page curled at the edge. He placed it on the podium as if it might burn him. Caleb reached forward. Harper guided his hand only to the corner, then let go. He flattened the page with his fingertips. His breathing was audible through the microphone. The room did not need to understand Braille to understand the way he touched it. Not guessing. Not searching, reading. Caleb began, Friday, after suspension meeting. I am recording this because Principal Cole requested my notes and may take them. Exam room. Conference B. Folded paper found under left front chair before test began. Mr. Voss chair near window. Principal Cole in hall said, another irregularity. Marked numbers given to me by Mrs. Blake. 6, 11, 13, 18, 22. Cole barked, those are invented. Caleb did not raise his voice. They are seats. The words landed cleanly. He continued, finger moving across the torn edge. All 5 positions sit on left side of Conference B, outside hallway camera view when doors half open. If someone wanted the answer key found by me, they would place it there before I arrived. The audience understood before Cole did, not because the proof was complicated, because it was simple enough to be cruel. A blind student had mapped a room by memory, recorded a timeline in a language his accuser could not read, and preserved the one version of events Cole could not rewrite without stealing it. Harper placed the seating chart beside the page. The circled seats matched Caleb's Braille note. Mrs. Ellis covered her mouth. Ruth was crying openly now, but she was standing. Cole tried to laugh again. It failed halfway through. Even if that is true, it proves only that Caleb is clever. He could have made those notes after seeing the chart. I can't see the chart, Caleb said. A few people gasped, not because they had forgotten he was blind, but because Cole had. Taryn stepped forward. He never had access to it. I kept it in my folder. Cole spun toward her. You are finished. Harper's voice cut across his. Principal Cole, you do not threaten staff during a district review. There is no review. There is now. The camera light near the aisle blinked red again. This time, Cole saw it. Turn that off, he said. No one did. He pointed toward the local reporter. This involves a minor. Stop recording. Harper answered before anyone else could. The district will address privacy. You created the public proceeding. Cole's control began to break in small, visible ways. His hand adjusted his tie twice. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then he made the mistake powerful people make when their script disappears. He reached for the torn page. Caleb's hand covered it first. The microphone caught the soft slap of palm over paper. No, Caleb said. One word. Flat. Calm, final. Cole froze. Caleb kept his hand on the page. You don't get to take my words again. The room held that sentence. Harper moved beside him. Mr. Morrow, what do you want entered into the record tonight? Caleb turned his face toward the audience, though he could not see their eyes. I want my suspension paused. I want my exam flagged for independent review, not misconduct. I want Mr. Voss's statement included. I want Mrs. Blake's chart included. And I want Principal Cole removed from anything involving my case. Cole snapped, You don't dictate district procedure. No, Caleb said. I'm requesting it where everyone can hear. That was the decisive moment. Not Harper's authority, not Taryn's guilt, not Voss's witness statement. Caleb had chosen the public place Cole created and used it to ask for a process Cole could not quietly control. Harper nodded once. The request is noted. Then she faced the auditorium. Scholarship night is suspended for 15 minutes. Parents, please remain seated. Staff, do not leave with documents. Principal Cole, you will step into the side office with me and Miss Blake. Cole stared at her as if the room might still choose him. But donors were whispering. Parents were holding phones. Teachers were no longer avoiding each other's eyes. The school motto hung behind him, bright and useless. Denise, he said, lowering his voice, Think about the district's reputation. Harper's answer was quiet enough that the microphone barely caught it. I am. Cole stepped away from the podium. No handcuffs, no instant firing, no dramatic collapse, just the beginning of something he could not manage with a press release. The district opened an emergency review that night. The scholarship recognition list was frozen, not canceled. Caleb's suspension was placed on administrative hold before he left the building. Taryn Blake provided the original seating chart to Harper. Mr. Voss gave a written statement in the side office while Mrs. Ellis sat beside Ruth with one arm around her shoulders. As for the exam scandal, the truth did not finish unfolding in the auditorium. Cole stood near the side door, no longer smiling, while two board officials spoke in low voices. Every few seconds, his eyes drifted toward the torn page still under Caleb's hand. He wanted it back. Everyone could see that now. Caleb slid the page into the blue notebook, careful with the torn edge. Then he took his mother's stylus from his pocket and pressed one new line beneath the others. Harper waited until he finished. "What did you write?" she asked. Caleb closed the notebook. "The truth is not yours because you found it," he said. "It belongs to the person who kept it." Behind him, for once, nobody laughed. Caleb did not go back to class on Monday. Not because he was suspended. Because Harper told Ruth the district needed 2 days to separate a student's safety from an adult's pride. By Tuesday afternoon, Lincoln Ridge sent a corrected notice. Caleb Morrow's suspension had been lifted. His exam would be reviewed independently as part of a broader testing investigation. No misconduct finding would appear on his record. The email was only 4 paragraphs long. Ruth read it twice at the kitchen table, then put one hand over her mouth and cried without making a sound. Caleb sat across from her, the blue notebook open under his fingers. He did not feel victory yet. Mostly, he felt tired. Justice, he learned, did not arrive like applause. It arrived like paperwork, phone calls, careful wording, and adults finally being forced to write down what they should have admitted out loud. By the end of the week, Principal Cole was placed on administrative leave pending the district review. The local news did not name Caleb, but everyone in Cedar Rapids knew enough. A principal had publicly accused a blind student, damaged his notes, and tried to control an investigation that was supposed to be independent. The school board brought in outside counsel. The district froze the scholarship night results until every flagged exam could be checked. Taryn Blake gave a full statement. She admitted Cole had pressured staff to keep the leak quiet until after the event, because another scandal would damage his promotion file. She said she had not known Caleb would be blamed until the office meeting, and that her silence afterward was cowardice. Caleb did not forgive her right away. He did not hate her either. He simply let her apology sit where it belonged, outside the part of him that still hurt. Mr. Voss kept his job, but he stopped avoiding Caleb in the hall. The first time they passed each other, he said, "I should have spoken sooner." Caleb answered, "Yes, that was all." Sometimes one word was enough truth for a day. 2 weeks later, Harper came to the duplex with a district envelope and sat at the uneven kitchen table. Ruth served grocery store cookies on a plate with a crack through the middle. Harper did not pretend not to notice the folded cardboard under the short table leg. "Your exam score stands," she said. Caleb's hand paused over the notebook. 98? 98. Ruth let out a breath that sounded 10 years old. Harper continued. "The state math program has been notified that the misconduct hold was improper. Your application window has been extended." Caleb nodded once. "And the district is issuing a formal apology." Ruth's voice sharpened. "To his face?" Harper met her eyes. "In writing. And at the next board meeting if Caleb wants that." Caleb thought of the auditorium, the phones, the laughter that had stopped too late, the way Cole had held up his notes like evidence of shame. "No meeting," he said. Ruth started to protest, but Caleb touched her wrist. "I don't want another room full of people deciding what my pain means." Harper accepted that without argument. "Then the letter will be direct." The apology arrived 3 days later. Caleb read it with a braille display Mrs. Ellis borrowed from the accessibility office. The words were careful, but they were there. Improper public disclosure. Failure to follow procedure. Damage to personal educational materials. Unwarranted suspension. Corrected record. Ruth kept a print copy in the drawer with Lila's photographs and old insurance letters. Caleb kept the braille copy inside the blue notebook, behind the repaired torn page. Mrs. Ellis helped him tape the page back in with archival tape from the library. She did it slowly, asking before each movement, letting Caleb guide the edges with his fingertips. When it was done, the tear was still visible. Caleb liked that. A thing did not have to look untouched to be whole. In March, the district announced the results of the review. Cole had resigned before the final recommendation. The report said answer keys had been mishandled, staff had been pressured to minimize irregularities, and student discipline had been used to protect the school's public image. No one was arrested in a dramatic hallway scene. No one was dragged out under flashing lights. But Cole lost the position he had used to frighten children, and his name was removed from the Leadership Award nomination he had been chasing all year. That was enough. Lincoln Ridge changed too. Not perfectly, but concretely. Testing rooms had documented access logs. Accommodation procedures required a second adult not chosen by the principal. Students could request a witness in discipline meetings. Braille and tactile notes were no longer treated as mysterious objects just because most adults could not read them. Caleb made the state math program. On the morning the acceptance email came, Ruth burned toast because she was shouting before the screen reader finished the sentence. Caleb laughed so hard he had to sit down. For once, the kitchen did not feel like a place where they were bracing for the next bill, the next call, the next accusation. It felt like a beginning they had earned. The night before he left for Iowa City, Caleb sat at the table with his mother's stylus in his hand. Ruth had gone to bed early, though he could hear her radio low through the wall. He opened the notebook to a fresh page. For a while, he wrote nothing. Then his fingers moved. He wrote his mother's name, Lila Morrow, then Ruth's, then Mrs. Ellis, then, after a pause, his own. Not as evidence, not as defense, just as handwriting. The notebook had started as a place to survive school. Then it became proof. Then a shield. Then a record of the night Caleb closed it and placed the old stylus on top. Outside, a train horn moved through Cedar Rapids low and steady. The table still had its cardboard under one leg. The radiator still knocked. Nothing had turned magical. But Caleb's record was clean. His future was open. And the page Cole had torn was still there, repaired, but not hidden. Proof that dignity can be damaged in public and still be reclaimed by the person everyone underestimated. So here's the question. When someone in power calls a quiet person guilty before the facts are heard, who do you believe first? The loudest voice in the room, or the one still brave enough to tell the truth calmly? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if stories like this remind you that justice can start with one person refusing to be erased, subscribe for the next one.